In the early hours of April 26, 1986, something began to unfold inside a nuclear reactor in the north of Soviet Ukraine. Something invisible, silent, irreversible. There was no loud warning, no immediate announcement to the world, just a chain of mistakes, rushed decisions, and a dangerous overconfidence in technology. At 1:23 a.m., reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded. It wasn't an explosion like a conventional bomb. There was no shockwave flattening entire cities. Instead, the 1,000-ton lid of the reactor was hurled into the air like the top of a boiling pot. The nuclear core was left fully exposed to the atmosphere. And in that moment, the Earth gained an open wound. Radioactive flames began to burn graphite, nuclear fuel, and metal structures, a fire that could not be extinguished by ordinary means. Invisible particles rose into the sky, forming a deadly cloud that would travel across entire continents. The operators who survived the blast didn't immediately understand what had happened. Many believed the reactor was still intact. Others assumed the instruments were malfunctioning, because the readings were simply too extreme to seem real. When the first firefighters arrived, the scene was surreal. Highly radioactive graphite blocks were scattered across the ground like glowing stones. Some men kicked them aside with their boots, others picked them up with their bare hands to clear a path. They didn't realize they were touching fragments of a nuclear reactor core. Radiation levels were so intense that a single hour of exposure could be fatal, and still they climbed onto the roof to fight the fire. There were no protective suits, no proper protocols, only courage, confusion, and orders to contain the flames at any cost. Many of those men would die within weeks, their bodies destroyed from the inside out. But while all of this was happening at the plant, just a few kilometers away, the city of Pripyat continued as if nothing had happened. Built in the 1970s to house plant workers and their families, Pripyat was a modern city by Soviet standards. It had schools, hospitals, cinemas, swimming pools, parks, and nearly 49,000 residents. That morning, children went to school. Workers reported for their shifts. Couples walked through tree-lined streets. That night, residents noticed something strange on the horizon, a bluish glow rising from the direction of the plant. Some climbed onto bridges and balconies to get a better look. The phenomenon was caused by ionized air, radiation so intense it made the sky itself glow. It looked beautiful, almost magical. In reality, it was extremely lethal. For nearly 2 full days, no official information was released about the accident. Local authorities were trying to understand the situation while avoiding panic. The Soviet Union did not want to show weakness. But radiation levels in the city were rising by the hour. Children played in parks while radioactive particles settled on the ground and their clothes. People breathed contaminated air without knowing. Babies slept beside open windows. On the afternoon of April 27th, the evacuation order finally came. Buses began arriving in massive numbers. More than 1,000 vehicles formed one of the largest civilian evacuations in peacetime history. Residents were given clear instructions: bring only documents, money, and a few essential items. The evacuation would be temporary, just a few days. They left everything behind. Pets were abandoned. Photo albums remained on shelves. Food was left on tables. Many locked their doors, believing they would return the following week. They never did. Pripyat became a ghost city in a matter of hours. The silence that settled over its streets was not natural. It was abrupt, artificial, as if life itself had been switched off. Over time, nature began to reclaim every space. Windows shattered, roofs collapsed. Trees grew inside apartments, rust covered playgrounds, and metal structures. The famous Ferris wheel in the amusement park, scheduled to open just days after the evacuation, never carried a single child. It still stands today, frozen in time, a symbol of a future that never came. But what makes Chernobyl truly unsettling is not just the abandonment. It's the fact that the place was never completely empty. In the years after the disaster, some people began to return in secret. Mostly elderly residents who had spent their entire lives there or in nearby villages. They walked through forests, avoided checkpoints, and made their way back home. Authorities tried to remove them again, but many refused to leave. For them, exile was worse than the invisible risk of radiation. They became known as self-settlers. They live in old houses, grow small gardens, and raise animals to survive. Many rely on well water and wood from nearby forests. From a medical perspective, the decision seemed suicidal. From a human perspective, it was understandable. Home is not just a physical place, it is memory, identity, belonging. Some of these residents have lived past 90, spending decades inside the exclusion zone. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening around them. With no large-scale farming, no functioning cities, and no regular hunting, nature began to reclaim the territory. Forests expanded rapidly. Wildlife returned in large numbers. Today, the exclusion zone hosts wolf populations larger than those found in nearby nature reserves. Boars, elk, lynx, and wild horses roam freely. Chernobyl has become, ironically, one of the largest unintended ecological experiments in history. But that doesn't mean radiation has no impact. Studies show genetic mutations, immune system changes, and reduced life expectancy in some species. Still, the absence of humans has offset part of that damage. In many cases, human presence appears to be more destructive than radiation itself. Even so, the danger remains. Contamination is not uniform. Some areas are relatively safe, while others still reach dangerous radiation levels. The soil, the dust, and certain objects continue to emit invisible particles. A simple step off a monitored path can lead to significant exposure. Today, thousands of workers enter the zone daily for environmental monitoring, maintenance, and security. The massive steel arch covering the destroyed reactor, known as the new safe confinement, was built to contain radiation and prevent further leaks. Inside, there is still a highly radioactive mass formed from melted nuclear fuel, sand, concrete, and metal. This substance will remain dangerous for thousands of years. The current structure is designed to last about a century. After that, future generations will need to find another solution. Chernobyl is not a solved problem. It is an inherited one. And perhaps the most disturbing realization is that there is no technology capable of fully cleaning the area. The only real strategy is to wait for time itself to reduce the radioactivity. Decades, centuries, millennia, and in the meantime, the place continues to exist. Before the war in Ukraine, Chernobyl had become a peculiar tourist destination. Visitors from around the world paid to enter the zone, walk through Pripyat, and witness the aftermath of a nuclear disaster up close. Tours follow strict rules. Do not touch objects, do not sit on the ground, do not take anything, do not eat outdoors. Because the threat is invisible, it has no smell, it makes no sound, but it is still there. And perhaps the most unsettling truth is that, for the few permanent residents, Chernobyl is not a symbol of catastrophe. It is simply home, where they were born, where they lived, where their stories still remain. Today, when you walk through the empty streets of Pripyat, the silence is absolute. No engines, no voices, no human routine. Only the wind passing through hollow buildings and the distant sounds of wildlife reclaiming the space. It is not a peaceful silence. It is a silence that feels like it is watching you back, as if the place itself remembers what happened. Chernobyl is an unintended monument to the power of technology and to the fragility of human control over it. A permanent reminder that some creations can exceed our ability to predict them, and that certain mistakes cannot be undone, only managed. Even decades later, the destroyed reactor is monitored 24 hours a day. Sensors track temperature, radiation, and structural stability, because beneath that steel structure, something still exists that cannot be turned off. Something that will remain active long after we are gone. And yet, people live there. They plant, they breathe, they grow old. They call that place home. If you want to keep exploring the most disturbing, forgotten, and fascinating secrets of human history, subscribe to The Hidden, because there are places in this world that should not exist, but they do. And once you uncover the truth about them, it becomes impossible to forget.